All right. Okay, so we are ready to go. So again, good morning. First things first, if you guys wouldn't mind in the chat box, if you would please put your name and everybody in the party that's with you, so that we've got that for our civil rights information. And then one of the things I want to start doing for everybody that is here, I've got a couple people here already in the room with me, and so I'm going to have them help me out. And so we're going to start off by doing a couple quick door prizes. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, you need to be present to win. So yell out if it turns out that you guys are here. All right, and we're going to give away a pair of garden gloves. There's one that is orange and lime green, and the other one is purple and pink. Kind of the bottom parts are different colors from the top part of the glove. And so I've got a couple gloves to give away today. And so we're gonna draw right now for the first one. So Julie, you wanna come up and give Auntie Becky a hand here? Hopefully everybody can hear me okay too. So I put everybody's name in our little bowl here, and I've got Julie Cross is going to pick one of those, any one of those in there. Okay. All right, and then hand that to me, and let's see who won a pair of garden gloves. Is Tina Lau on today? If you are, go ahead and unmute yourself and say, I'm here. Oh, no. Okay, we're going to have Julie pick again until we get a winner. Okay, let's see who this, oh, that one. Okay, hold on to that one just in case this person's not there. Oh, okay, is Tony Vera on? Oh,
yes, I'm here.
Oh, you were there, all right. So we got a pair of children's garden gloves for you, probably for Kavika, so.
Yep.
Okay,
awesome.
Okay, and then Julie picked out another one. We're gonna give away a what is it called? A giant world record giant pumpkins 2 book. And that one's gonna go to Christina Woodhams, if I pronounced that right. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly.
No, you got it, I'm here.
All right, okay, so we got that for you. So I'll make sure that I get it to Christine and or have her help me in getting your contact information so we can send that to you. And then I've got one more door prize to give away for right now to get us started. And that's gonna be it's a garden mat, and it's used for like if you're transplanting plants and stuff. And so let's see who the winner of that one's gonna be. Okay, and again, hopefully I'm not butchering this too badly. Quiana London. Did I say that right? Are you here? Okay, let's pick one more real quick. All right. And oh, Eunice, are you on? I have Ray Okabayashi. Oh no, they're not on. Okay, see, that's why we like to start early with the door prizes. Okay, pick another one. Well, just try one until somebody's here. I know sometimes people run a little late, and that's why we do our door prizes to get started. Ah, Christine Hanakawa, are you on?
I am, but you can give it to somebody else.
Okay, all right, one more.
Okay. Yeah. I'm on as an agent today, actually.
What's that?
I'm on as an agent today, so.
Okay. Okay, so then I have Melody Ingbino Kai. Is that how you say that? Okay, try one more. Yeah, some people must have forgot or slept in or something. Okay. This one is, oh, are you on? Melody? Okay, so this one's gonna go to Eleanor Ping.
I'm here.
All right, Eleanor. All right, so we'll make sure that we get those to Christine, or I'll follow up with her to see how we can get these out to you, okay? All right, so let me just put these aside so I don't forget.
Becky, do you want me to write down who got what? So you have a record?
Yeah, I'm gonna put them right here, yeah.
Just kidding about that.
Oh, no.
Tony had the gloves.
Yeah. And then that, and- okay, I got that. So, all right, guys. So, again, my apologies for you guys not being able to see me. Maybe when we get finished with the presentation and we stop share screening, you guys will be able to have a chance to see me here in just a little bit. But I am Becky Setledge, and I am also known as Auntie Becky for the kids. And so I'm a county extension agent for University of Hawaii, and I oversee the 4-H Youth Development Program here in Hawaii County. And I'm also the state coordinator for Junior Master Gardener. So before we kind of get started, again, if you haven't signed in on the chat box, please do so and indicate everybody that is on with you today. And hopefully you're familiar with Zoom. So if you don't just see our slide up, you may need to change your settings to speaker view or full screen so that you can make sure that you're seeing everything that we're seeing today. We're real informal here, so I need to make sure that if you have a question, you need to unmute yourself and just interrupt me, okay? Because otherwise I'm just going to keep rambling on, because that's just the way I am. So make sure that if you have a question, just unmute yourself and interrupt me, and we'll try and get your question answered, okay? You can put it in the chat mode, but I won't be seeing it because it's really hard for me to see the chat box on my end. So, so yeah, okay. And all right, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot to kind of cover. Just checking emails and such. I've got a lot of people trying to get a hold of me. I'm not sure if they're, having technical difficulties or if they're just telling me that they aren't coming. But anywho, all right. So what we hope to do today, there we go, is we're hoping that we're going to be able to get through all of these different topics. Okay. So we're going to start off by giving you a history of our program, especially for those of you that are new. Hopefully this will give you a little better understanding of how, we've kind of gotten to this point today, at least here in our county. I know that we're going to be talking a little bit about Oahu County throughout our presentation too, because Oahu County is now participating in this contest, which is great. And but hopefully this will give you a better understanding of how we've gotten to this point of where we are today. Okay. We're also going to take a look at our contest schedule, at least for the Big Island here. Christine plans to have her own orientation to kind of cover some of these different things with just the Oahu folks too. But I had encouraged her to have Oahu be a part of this presentation too, because there's a lot of things that I think may be covered that she might not touch on. Okay. We're also going to talk about seeds versus starting plants. And then we'll cover a few basics about starting seeds and plants. Okay. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what you should be doing between the time that you get your plants in the ground to the time that you're going to be pollinating. We're going to touch a little bit on pests, deficiencies, and diseases that you need to watch out for. And then we're going to cover a little about pollination, and then we'll wrap things up, okay, with a question answer if we didn't get to your questions earlier or throughout the program, okay? So we do have quite a bit to go over. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. And again, if at any time you have a question, just feel free to unmute, and I think we'll be good. All right. Right. So let's talk a little bit about the history. So our involvement with this contest started back in 2012. And we started up in the Waimea area, which is the north part of our island here on the Big Island. And we collaborated with a gentleman by the name of Paul Johnston he's from Kekela Farms. And he used to run a giant pumpkin contest annually over at their Waimea farmers market over at Parker School. And our involvement allowed us to include a youth school category in the contest when we got involved. And so, you know, with that participation after the first year, it was kind of decided that we would hold it another year, and it just kind of grew from there because there was, you know, the interest was there to continue it. And so in 2013, which was the following year, we actually had one of our growers who still kind of competes with us today. You know, he set the contest record for one of our giant pumpkins, which was 636 pounds. So that was in 2013. And although the state record for Hawaii, which is actually held or which was actually done on Maui, it was recorded at 1,023 pounds, and it was set in 2009. But we still think of Noah's pumpkin as being the one to beat. Okay, so so if you happen to get a giant pumpkin, if you're growing one and it, you know, beats out that 633, or excuse me, 636, we certainly want to know. But know that we still have a ways to get to our 1,023, which was set back in 2009. All right. Okay, so in 2014, that's the year that we moved away from just having giant pumpkins at our contest, and we kind of introduced growing giant tomatoes. And it kind of got off to a slow start, but what we did to try to encourage people to participate with the giant tomatoes was we had a best tasting tomato contest, and that kind of got some people interested in growing tomatoes. And then we also included a pumpkin cooking contest that year too. And this was also the year that we experienced Hurricane Iselle here on the Big Island. And so we were just excited and amazed that we were even able to have a contest that year. And you can see the picture in the middle of the screen there of my enclosure that I had at that time and how it got demolished. So it was not a fun year for some of us. Okay, 2015, we tried to develop a GPC sanctioned contest. GPC stands for Giant Pumpkin Commonwealth. This is a organization on the mainland that actually has a lot of they do a lot of stuff in relation to the contests that are done all around the United States. But unfortunately, the year that we tried to have a sanctioned contest, we only had 3 pumpkins that were entered. So, and you can kind of see them there. And so 2016, we introduced the giant watermelons and bushel gourds to the contest. And then that happened to be the year that we had a lot of interest in growing giant tomatoes. So you can see in the left-hand side there, we were growing quite a few giant tomatoes that year. The following year in 2017, we ended up, see if I can move that out of the way. Just noticed that okay. Anyway, 2017, we had our first giant fruit and vegetable seminar, and that was held in person and virtually. And then seeing the response and the interest that we had from the seminar, we decided to make it an annual event. And so we also that year had a contestant that actually was successful in growing our first giant bushel gourd for the contest. And we decided that year to kind of try our luck in moving our contest from the Waimea area to Hilo during the JC Hawaii County Fair. And although our contest only had a few entries, it actually had more entries than we had in previous years. So you can kind of see there in the picture, we did have some giant watermelons, a bushel gourd. We had 3 giant pumpkins, several giant tomato entries, and then a few other miscellaneous entries. 2018, we introduced our giant sunflowers and our long gourds to the contest. And we held our first annual giant fruit and vegetable contest educational tour. And of course, it rained on that day. I think it rains every year during our tour, but we didn't let it, stop us. The tour was really educational, and not only did it allow our contestants to learn, some new tricks of growing their giants, it also allowed them to check out the competition. And this tour is something that we've made into an annual event, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. So in 2019, nothing special happened that year other than we continue to have the support of our mainland growers. And that came, of course, from all the seeds that you see there that we got for our program. So it's great. We could not do this program without the generosity of our growers. In 2020, we, of course, ended up dealing with COVID. And but actually in 2020, it was a very productive year for us. That was a year that we developed our Facebook group page, and we offered monthly talk story sessions to give support and follow up to make sure that everyone was doing okay with their plants. And we continued to hold our annual seminar and tours. But of course, in 2020, it was done 100% virtually. And at the end of the year, we offered a virtual award ceremony. And we actually ended up better in 2020, increasing our entries by over 240%, and ended up actually with several state records, which was good. Okay, and then of course in 2021, last year, we continued with COVID, which kept our program virtual for a second year. But last year we did add to our giant fruit and vegetable contest. We added the cabbage, and we also welcome Molokai and Oahu County to participate. So not a total loss there with COVID, thank goodness. All right, so now that you kind of have a little bit of a history of how we got here to this point, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about our contest schedule. Okay? And so this is a schedule for the Big Island. And so again, when you have your orientation on Oahu with Christine, for those of you that are on Oahu, she'll probably have a schedule somewhat similar that you guys will be able to use to determine your start dates, okay? But yeah, so when it comes to figuring out when we start our plants, at least here on the Big Island, we have entries, for a contest day, and it's never real simple for us to determine when we're going to start. We're not fortunate either that, like on the mainland, if your entries need a little bit more time on the plant, or if it's ready to harvest before the contest or the contest day. On the mainland, they usually have like 2 or more contests that they can enter. So they're pretty lucky there. But over here, we've always just had the one contest day that we've had our contest, and we did have a group in Kona one year on the west side of the island that tried to copycat what we were doing and try to have their own giant contest, and I actually had to plead with them to not compete against what it was that we were doing, because every year, our numbers vary as far as the entries that we get. And right now, at that time, there just wasn't enough contestants to make it more than just one contest and have it be successful. And so anyways, we have a lot of variables here on the Big Island. And I think as soon as we see how things grow on Oahu And as you guys on Oahu attempt to kind of hold your contests on your island over the next few years, you're going to be figuring out some of these same things that we do here on the Big Island and trying to figure out this growing schedule. But we try our best to look at how the plants have done the previous year, and then we set the dates that way. Again, knowing that there isn't going to be one perfect time, but trying our best to try and get the most entries that we can for our contest day. And so the JC Hawaii County Fair has always been kind of held over the third weekend in September. And we're again, not going to have a fair again this year, but we kind of decided, my committee and I, we're going to go ahead and hold our contest just for one day this year. And we're going to hold it as if it was going to be held, this fair was going to be held. So then next year, what our hope is that when the fair does start again, hopefully everybody will have a good idea of what they need to do to try to have their entries by contest time. Okay, so that's going to put our contest for this year here on the Big Island for Saturday, September the 17th. And again, Oahu, you'll need to check with Christine for your dates of when she's planning on having that contest. So now if you kind of look at our schedule, you can kind of see that I started the tomatoes and the cabbage yesterday. And if all goes as planned, my hope is that they're going to be ready to distribute sometime around mid to late May. And typically our tomatoes, they do best when we start them around this time. And but that puts them ready to harvest kind of like early July or so. And so a couple years ago, we started to follow what the mainland growers were doing, which was to hold what they call a virtual contest. And basically what that entails is that, and this is just for tomato entries, what we do is with our tomato entries, the contestants can bring their tomatoes to our office to have them officially weighed before the fall contest. And we allow that the contestants, they can enter up to 3 tomatoes before mid-August. And then after that, they would need to be brought to the actual contest in September. Okay. And it seems to have worked out pretty good over the last few years, and this will definitely be something we'll continue. And the reason why we have this for tomatoes is because of the fact that the tomatoes will typically be ready way before the September contest. So for that reason, we have had this option for those growing giant tomatoes. Okay. We're still going to be experimenting with cabbage this year. My hope is that we can learn to manage these to have fall entries. And so again, we'll kind of see. And I'd always been told that it would take up to 9 months to kind of harvest our cabbage. But of course, things over here in Hawaii grow a lot faster. And so we're still trying to get this kind of figured out. Okay, but you can kind of see what we've got lined up. We're figuring 3 months or more for our giant cabbage. Okay. This year with watermelons, we're going to go ahead and try our hand at grafting again. So those who signed up to grow watermelons, we hope that will be able to give you a chance to do both if you choose. And those hopefully will be ready for distribution towards the end of June, early July is what we're hoping for. And then you can kind of see the remaining of the schedule for the bushel gourds, long gourds, pumpkins, and sunflowers. We've tried to bunch a few of them together to kind of save, the extra trips to our office to pick up the plants. But we're going to try to stay flexible. And so I need to have you guys also stay a little flexible, because sometimes our plants really take off and they can be ready sooner, or they might be slower and might not fall when I expect them to. Okay. So know that I'll be sending out reminders prior to the start of when I start these plants, because in the past, we have had people who have signed up to grow plants, but then they never pick them up. and so we don't want to be wasting our resources, if you know what I mean. So, so yeah, so be flexible and look for emails to reconfirm that these are plants that you actually want to grow. All right, so we'll be looking to have our contest date for Hawaii County again in mid-September. But now you might maybe be thinking, well, you know, why don't we just weigh the entries when they're ready? Kind of like we've been doing the last couple of years. And of course, I'm talking mainly to the Big Island about this. But, you know, for those that have competed the last couple of years, you know, it was great that everyone could weigh at any time, because of course that allowed everyone to have an entry this way. But the downfall, of course, was just the fact that the first entry we weighed in is usually the first part of July, and the last is usually October 30th. So for 4 months, everyone's having to wait around to see who actually won until our ceremony, which has usually been about the 31st of October. And so for me, that just isn't a contest the way we're doing it that way. But we made some, you know, exceptions for how we did our program because of the COVID situation. And so now that we're kind of coming out of COVID, which we hope that we're going to stay out of our COVID situation and keep things open, we want to try and move that back to a one-day contest. And so what we're wanting to try to do is to teach everyone that's part of this contest to really manage their projects. And if you've ever been involved with, like, say, the 4-H livestock program, the livestock projects that the 4-Hers do, you know, they have their animal that they feed their project animal out for a certain number of days, and then they have one show date. And so I kind of would like to try to move back in that direction. And so then when the JC Fair starts up again, I'm hoping we'll have lots of entries. Plus, think about it. I mean, I think it would be kind of fun if we would be able to actually, you know, have the one day that everybody gets together, everyone can see everybody's entries. You know, we're able to announce the winner right there in front of others, and you don't have to wait several days so that you know, can pick up your prizes and your ribbons and that sort of thing, or have to get it in the mail. You know, that's just not as fun. Okay. So that's kind of what we've decided to do for this year. And then lastly, when it comes to the distribution of the plants, you know, again, when the plants are ready, we need to try to get them in the ground or into much larger pots to kind of keep their potential, you know, growing as best as we can. So so what we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid having the plants sit in their 4x4 pots. You know, they're just going to end up getting root bound. They might get nutrient deficient and or it's going to set them back and not grow so well. So what we're going to try to do is narrow down that window of time when we can try and have you guys pick up these plants. And again, you can see the distribution days that we kind of have set out for you. And but again, try to stay a little bit flexible because yeah, we just never know how our growing year is going to go from year to year. Okay. But again, the sooner we can get those plants in the ground into larger pots, it's going to certainly give your plant the best advantage for growth. Okay. So are there any questions before we move on? Been pretty quiet, so hopefully people are still there. Okay, not hearing anything, we're going to go ahead and continue on. So, oh, what happened here? There we go. All right. So let's take a few minutes to kind of discuss having you start with seeds versus getting plants. Okay. So, you know, again, this year we have given our contestants, you know, when you signed up, you had an option to select either receiving seeds or plants again this year. Oahu, I don't know what Christine has in store for you guys, so you'll need to ask her if that is an option for you or if they're going to be starting them for you. But again, back on the Big Island, you know, kind of regardless of which you choose, and this will probably go the same for Oahu. Typically, we only give out either 2 seeds or 2 plants. And so as you can kind of see by the chart, there's pros and cons to both. Okay, so the pros to starting seeds yourself would be, of course, managing the time of when you start to plant. So this might be a good thing. Say if you live in a cooler climate, you would have more time to grow if you started the seeds yourself instead of waiting for plants that I would be starting. Okay, and you of course would learn a new skill of starting seeds, and then of course that sense of accomplishment and joy that you would get from growing plants yourself, from a seed. Of course, on the other hand, the cons would be that seeds come with no guarantee of germination. Okay, the seeds that I would be giving to you, the seeds that Christine has, they are good seeds. The only thing is that once they leave my office, I can't monitor how those seeds, are going to do as far as, I don't know if somebody's going to throw them up on their dash of their truck or something and they, sit out in the hot sun or, that kind of thing. So I can't monitor, things like that. I can't monitor how you handle the seeds. So again, the seeds do not come with any guarantee of germination. Okay. Second, there's, that learning curve in starting seeds. If you've never started seeds before, sometimes they can be a little tricky. Not that I want that to scare you off, but, because they're not that tricky, but they sometimes can be a little tricky in trying to get them started, which we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But the third thing is that starting from seed sometimes takes a little bit more time and effort. Okay, so yeah, so taking a look at receiving the plants on the other hand, instead of seed.
Becky,
Yeah.
you were talking about, you mentioned something about somebody wanting, if they lived in a cooler area, wanting to get theirs started earlier. So are you going to give people who want to go that route their seeds before you start them?
Yeah, so when people when they signed up on that Google form, they indicated to me if they wanted seeds or if they wanted plants. And so as far as Oahu, all that information for Oahu went to Christine. So she can determine what she needs to do that way. Everyone here on the Big Island, if they had indicated that they wanted seeds, which I don't think that anybody did, and you can unmute yourself and say, I wanted seeds, if I'm wrong. But I think for the most part, everyone over here, again, they don't want to take that chance that they get seeds and they don't germinate. And so they're opting more to just get the plants. But again, if there was somebody, I would definitely let them know so that they're able to come get the seeds when they're ready for them. So yeah, so good question. All right, so again, taking a look at if you're receiving plants, again, one of the pros is that you're gonna get a jump start with a healthy plant, and especially for beginners that are starting with plants, you're not gonna have to deal with that tender seedling, when it's most vulnerable. And of course, that's kind of just an added convenience too, when you can just take the plant and then just put it in the ground. And so now I was only able to come up with one con for plants, and that would be that sometimes when you transplant young plants, it could set them back a little bit, and we call that plant shock. It doesn't happen often, but it could. And so, kind of those are the pros and, of cons. If you can think of anything else that we can add to the, pros or cons on this list here, by all means, just kind of let me know. But yeah, so those are kind of the good things and the not so good things with these seeds versus plants. Okay. The other thing I just want to mention real quickly about whether you start off with seeds or plants, all of them have the potential genetically to grow monster-sized fruits and vegetables, but your conditions and your management practices is what's going to determine your end results. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about goal setting here in a little bit when we talk about this. So, okay, so I want to kind of just move on now and talk a little bit about seed and plant basics. Okay, so before you start, is your place ready? Okay, and so so when we when we get our plants, a lot of times, I will ask people, are you actually ready for your plants? And because it's really important that before you get your plants, that your ground is worked up, or your pot or whatever you're going to be growing your plant in is, you're ready before you actually get your plants. And so, again, if everything's ready, you can get that seed put right into the ground, or however way you're going to start your seed, or again, you can get that plant right into the ground. And so you're going to find that those are people that are ready, are going to be a lot more successful with their plants. Sometimes when we, when we started a couple years ago, what we did was we started to have where I had everybody send me a photo or post a photo like on our Facebook group page. And that showed us that, that you were ready to receive your plants or your seeds before you got them. And the photo, or excuse me, the photo that, we have you send to us just helps us to know too that, again, that you're ready. And if you're picking up more than one plant, so say you're picking up tomatoes, first off, you show us where you're going to be planting that, but you're going to pick up, say, giant pumpkin plants later on. We're going to expect you to show us photos of where that plant is going to go, and also show us how you're doing with your tomato plants. Okay. Basically what this does is it helps with accountability, and it also allows us to kind of see how you're doing. So again, if it turns out maybe you're struggling a little bit, then we're able to help you out. So, and it should kind of help even point out that even though, that this is a contest, if it turns out that, you're having problems, we want to be there to help you. So we want you to know that you should never hesitate to ask for help. I have to say that everyone the past few years have been so great in helping everyone out. I would love to see this continue. Again, it is a contest, but everybody wants to see everybody succeed, and so keep that in mind. Again, it's always good to help one another out, and I know that if I'm struggling and stuff, I've had people help me too. And the other thing too is, at least on our Facebook group page that Big Island has, we have a lot of giant growers who are also watching. They've donated seeds. They want to see how their seeds have done for us, and they're always really good to help with suggestions as well. Okay. Okay, so next, let's talk a little bit about where you plan to grow your plants. And so in selecting a site for growing, you need to ask yourself a few things. Okay, so first, is your plant going to get enough sun? I believe that all the plants that we grow during the year, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but I believe all of them do like the sun, with the exception of maybe cabbage. I think they'll do a little bit better, more in the shade, wouldn't you say? And second, does your soil have enough evaluation and drainage? We do get a lot of rain in certain parts of our islands, and so you need to be prepared for that. And we're wanting to make sure that it doesn't stay too wet, because we don't want your plant roots to rot, from all that excess wetness. So in relation to water, at times, when you need to water your plant, is the water going to be close by, or are you going to have to haul it? okay, to ensure that your plant is getting enough of what it needs, okay? And then lastly, do you have enough space needed to grow the giant plants that you signed up for? Okay, so moving on, let's take a look and see how you guys are doing with your space of where you plan to grow all these plants. I want everybody to kind of think about when you signed up for your plants and what you wanted to grow. You know, I think sometimes what happens is when you sign up and you see all of what is available, you know, everybody checks off everything. You know, it's like, oh, I want to grow one of everything. And, you know, again, in the end, we want you to be successful. And although you could probably grow all of the plants that we offer as part of the contest, you know, in a very small area, more than likely they're not going to grow to their full potential. Okay. And, or it's possible too that the plants could crowd out one another and maybe kill some of them off. So space is really important when you're growing giants. Okay. And that's one of the reasons that we offer more than just giant pumpkins for this contest. You know, and the mainland growers, they even started to have fun side competitions to see who could, you know, grow some giants in smaller areas. So if you look at the chart, you'll see that, you know, we have listed the 150 square foot contest for Atlantic giants and the 5-gallon bucket challenge for tomatoes. And so we'll discuss a little bit more about those here in just a little bit, but something to think about if you don't have a lot of space, you're still going to need some space to grow those. And you're going to be just growing, you know, one particular fruit or vegetable in that amount of space. But it's an added option if you don't have the larger size areas for growing some of these giants. Okay, so as you take a look at the chart, you're going to see that you might have signed up, you know, if you signed up for too many plants, or, you know, say that it looks like they're going to probably outgrow the garden area that you were planning to put these in. I say let's reevaluate what you signed up for now. And this will help us, again, to kind of save extra costs and resources of starting plants that, you know, later on you're not going to be able to use. Okay. And if you remember when you signed up online, I did ask questions about whether you planned on growing plants in a pot or a container, a garden bed, or a large open area on your property. And I asked you to kind of describe the size and the length and width of your planting area. This was so as as I get ready to start plants, I'll be able to review this information. And if I see that you don't have enough space, you know, I may be giving you a call. Or if you already know that, oh yeah, I probably, you know, signed up for more plants than my little area can handle. No worries, just send me an email and we can readjust or help you to find a plant that's more suitable for your situation. Because again, in the end, we want you to be successful, have fun, and not have to worry about, you know, getting plants that you're not able to use. Okay, and the same will go for those of you on Oahu. I think Christine may be contacting you, or she may have already contacted you. Okay. Okay, so moving on to taking a look at seeds. So now, so now that you have an idea of, you know, like how much space that you're going to need for your plants, I just want to kind of touch a little bit on, you know, starting, you know, seeds. And so those of you that may have requested seeds, this is kind of what the seeds for the most part look, you know, what they look like. And of course, this slide, it doesn't do you justice or do it justice. I mean, of course, the giant pumpkin seeds for the most part are going to be large in size compared to the tomato and cabbage seeds, which are very, very small. But I want to move on and talk about how, you know, we can get these ready. Okay. So with the large seeds like pumpkin, bushel gourd, long gourd, sometimes their seed coat is so thick that it's hard for them to germinate. So we try to help them out by using like an emery board or a light piece of sandpaper, and we actually sand down the edges. We just, you you just don't want to mess with the tip of the seed when you're doing this. So something to kind of keep in mind. And when you're sanding the edges, you don't want to sand down too far. So you can kind of see in the picture here, you're gonna have like a line that's real similar to the one in the photo. And that's as far down as you'll want to file them, okay? And then for pumpkin seeds, I'll soak them for about an hour after sanding them. Some people might soak them a little bit longer than that, but typically about an hour is about as, that's pretty good for soaking pumpkin seeds, okay? With the bushel gourd and long gourd seeds, I do the same as I do with the pumpkin seeds, filing down the edges and then soaking them, but I soak them overnight. And with these seeds, I'll also crack the seed coat edge lightly. And I was using needle nose pliers to do this, but I learned the hard way that it's too hard to be consistent with your grip when you're trying to use those pliers. And so, so you have to be really careful if you're trying it that way. It was suggested last year for me to try using a vice clamp and just going real slow with the pressure until the seed coat cracked. And so I did that last year, and it did do a little bit better than trying with the pliers. So, okay, so anyways, after you're sanding down the edges and the seed's been soaked, then what I do is I'll take a moistened paper towel, and then I'll place the seeds on that paper towel, fold that paper towel over, and then I'll stick them inside a Ziploc bag. And then with any left, these seeds usually germinate as quick as 2 to 3 days. And then any seeds that aren't germinated by day 10, I usually will toss, which isn't very many. I usually have really good success with especially the pumpkins. I probably get about 75% on my long gourds and bushel gourds. So yeah, but anything that doesn't germinate after day 10, I will usually toss. Okay, so now when you germinate using the paper towel method, you need to check those seeds daily. On the left, I have some pumpkin, watermelon, and bushel gourd seeds that I sprouted or that sprouted on day 2 and 3. One time I thought I could plant them on a Friday, and I thought, oh, they'll be fine until Monday morning when I come back to the office. And I came back, and the seeds on the right is basically what I came back to. And it's an awful mess to deal with. And it's best not to let them get to this point. So I'm warning you guys now, if you are going to try and start your own seeds, you got to watch them every single day. And if, if they've germinated, that's the time to get them in the soil. And if not, you're going to end up with a mess like I did. And again, it's just not fun to have to try and plant those and they don't usually start off real well. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they struggle. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and pot them in a 4x4 pot. But for most of you, if you're starting your plants from seed, you could actually just get them right into the ground at this point if you wanted. But again, that's kind of up to you. These larger seeds will root bound within about a week or so in those 4x4 pots once they sprout. So you want to be aware of that. And when I pot these germinated seeds, I usually will plant them about 1 inch to 1.5 inches deep. But that being said, it depends on the seed itself. So they say in general that seeds should be planted at the depth of 2 times the width of the seed. So if the width is about 1/2 inch, then, of course, you would plant them about 1 inch deep. And then from there, usually once you put them in the soil, about maybe another 2 or 3 days later, you'll see that they should be sprouting up out of the soil. Okay. All right, so if you're starting like with tomato or cabbage seeds, again, you're going to be working with very tiny seeds. So the biggest challenge, of course, is making sure that your seed isn't planted too deep in the soil. And so for these tiny seeds, when I've started them in soil, I usually will start with a soil that's pre-moistened already in the tray that I'm going to be growing the seeds in. Okay, or it might be a pot you know, if you're using a pot. Okay, and then I place the seeds on the soil and I just lightly, really lightly cover with just a little bit of soil, and usually not more than about 1/4 inch in, you know, depth. And then what I'll do is I'll take a spray bottle and I just kind of lightly spray them down. And then I cover it with like a plastic dome of some sort. So for those of you that are on a budget, you could get by, you know, recycling things like a McDonald's shake cup with a lid, or you could use a clear plastic cup, kind of like what you see here on the slide, and, you know, to make a little bit of a dome, okay, with a lid. And then I've also used saran wrap over the tops of the cups or pots. And the whole idea of this method is just to, you know, again, keep the seeds moist. And so I'll periodically remove the lid or saran wrap, you know, once or twice during that time that they're germinating. And I'll, you know, lightly spray them down with, you know, a little bit of water, again, just to make sure that they're staying moist. And then I'll cover them back up until they sprout. And then if all goes well, usually for me anyways, I've seen our tomato and cabbage seeds germinate anywhere from about 5 days to 2 weeks. Okay. Last year, I even tried starting tiny seeds on a moistened coffee filter. And then I placed those in a Ziploc bag. And once they germinated, then I would go ahead and put them in a seed tray. And then later I transplanted them into 4x4 pots. That's basically what I'm doing this year with our seeds, and hopefully they'll take off. It's a little bit cooler outside. In fact, we're getting rain right now. And typically when it's cool like this, for some reason or another, it always seems cooler in my office, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping everything will still germinate well. So we'll see. All right. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears here and talk a little bit about, you know, what to do if, you know, if you're getting plants. Okay, so we've already established the fact that that's really important that that you have your plants in the ground, or excuse me, have your ground all worked up, or have your container, your potting soils, everything you need ready before you pick up your plants. So unless you hear something different from me or from Christine, you're going to want to make sure that you transplant those plants within a day or so of getting them home. Again, the sooner the plant gets in the ground or transplanted into that larger pot, it's going to do better for you. Okay. If it turns out that your plant is a little leggy when you get it, because sometimes it happens when they're growing in the greenhouse, you know, it's okay. The plants, you know, what we do is we just try to encourage planting those plants a little bit deeper. And that just kind of helps support the plant stem. For those of you that will be getting tomato plants, occasionally I will get a call that when the plant got home, the wind came up and snapped it and broke your plant in half. You know, it can happen, but don't panic. If you look closely at the plant, you're going to see, like in this picture that I have here, the stem and the branches, they have lots of tiny little hairs. And if you place it in water or you bury that plant, you know, those little fine hairs will eventually develop into roots. And it might set your plant back a little bit, but most of the time the plant will turn around and it will grow for you. Okay. The other thing too is when your tomato plants get to a certain point where you need to trim it, hey, you know, I usually will use those cuttings from the plant, and I will start plants by putting them in water, and within a week they'll have roots, and then I have more plants. And so that's definitely something to think about if you're doing tomatoes, because it's a great way to extend your growing season out, and it also gives you some backup plants. Okay, if you know something happens to your original plant, if it dies unexpectedly. Okay, when it comes to pumpkins, bushel gourds, and long gourds, just a reminder, especially for those of you that are new, keep in mind that the first true leaf is important. So your plant grows in the right direction. And the main vine will grow opposite the first true leaf with these plants. And if you kind of take a look at the photo that I have on the screen, you'll see that I've labeled the first true leaf. And the arrow, I have an arrow there that's going to show you the direction that the main vine's going to grow. I try to get the plants out to everybody right after that first true leaf develops. If you wait too long to plant your plants, sometimes you get multiple leaves that all look the same, and then it's hard to tell which one's your first true leaf. So try not to let that happen. I've done that before and ended up having the plant grow the wrong direction. And so yeah, so you want to kind of watch that. So with pumpkins, bushel gourds, and long gourds, when they grow, this is something else to think about. With the pumpkin, bushel gourds, and long gourds, they grow a main vine, okay? And that main vine, you know, they just send out a straight main vine, and off of that main vine, you're gonna see new secondary vines that are gonna branch out to the right and left of the main vine. But with watermelon plants, for those of you that get watermelon plants that have never grown them before, they too will send out a main vine, but they're also going to send out several other vines or secondary vines, and they all come out from the same place at the stump. And so similar to what you can see in the picture. And so, you know, where their vines grow all different directions, you can still tell the main vine, because usually the main vine will be just a little bit longer. And usually what I do is I'll put a ribbon on there on that main vine. I just tie it on there real lightly. And then as it grows, I know which one the main vine is. They say most of the time that your best watermelons are going to grow off of that main. And so that's not to say you couldn't get one on a secondary, because you can, but for the most part, whether it's the pumpkins or bushel gourd or long gourds, or long gourds are a little bit harder to tell, but for bushel gourds and pumpkins, and of course the watermelons, they say the best ones will come off the main vine. Okay. After transplanting, I like to cover it with something. So you can see in this case, in the slide, I used a laundry basket that just shades out the plant a little bit. And I have chickens, so it kind of just keeps my chickens from messing with the, you know, the plant. And it also kind of protects it a little bit from pests, but I always suggest putting down some Sluggo, or, you know, you can start saving up your eggshells right now. And then, you know, when you have enough, you can grind up those eggshells and use it as a powder to sprinkle around your plant. And hopefully that'll deter some slugs and snails, you know, from hopefully getting to your tender new plants. Okay, so now you got the plants in the ground, and so now what? There is going to be a waiting period between the time that you transplant to the time that you pollinate. So let's kind of take a look at some of the things that, you know, that you're going to need to do during this waiting period. Okay, so while you're kind of waiting, you know, you might start thinking about laying out drip tapes if you plan to water this way. I myself use fan sprinklers, and so I set mine up on sawhorses, kind of like you see in the picture, and so, you know, I'm going to be setting those up during the downtime. I also start to get ready, you know, for the next set of plants that I might be growing. Okay. Again, I have chickens, and so I used to have feral pig issues. So, you know, I don't want, you know, them being, you know, getting into my plants and stuff. So I actually will set up electric fence in areas that might be a little bit unprotected from the chickens and from the pigs. And although I don't have soil, I do get a lot of weeds. And so I'll lay out black plastic or weed cloth. I also set up my automatic timers for watering, and I'll set up my injector fertilizer that I use to fertilize my plants. That's not something that you need to have, but it's something that I use. If you think about it, you might set up some walking boards around your plants. This kind of helps from compacting your soil, and it also helps to keep the soil loose. It's going to help, you know, also with proper oxygen exchange if the soil isn't compacted, and it's going to allow those roots to spread out more. Okay. Also, where I grow under plastic, my enclosure does get pretty warm, and so I use that time to set up shades. Okay. So from there, you basically just want to get your plant growing, have it fill up your 25 by 30-foot area or whatever area that you're growing it in. And just remember that the more foliage that you can get on your plants, the better your fruit's going to grow when you have it. Okay. Okay, so when it comes to growing pumpkins and bushel gourds, you do want to consider training your vines. And you're going to also want to think about burying those vines at the leaf nodes. Training is going to keep your plant manageable. And at each leaf node, new roots are going to develop if you have them buried. So by placing, soil around those leaf nodes, it's going to just help promote that root growth. And in turn, it's, those extra those extra roots are going to help to also tack down your vines to keep them from blowing around in the wind. And it's also going to help to get your plants, your pumpkins and your gourds, more nutrients when they start to grow. Okay. So when you grow your pumpkins and your bushel gourds, you're going to want to, again, train them. And you're going to train them in what they call a Christmas tree pattern. Okay, kind of, as you see there on the slide. And one note about the burying of the vines, you only want to place the soil around the leaf node area, kind of how you see in the photo. You don't want to bury the entire vine. Otherwise, you could cause the vine to rot. Okay. And then with bushel gourds, you don't need to bury them as heavy as you would the pumpkins. Excuse me. Okay, so you won't need to worry about burying vines with the watermelon plants like you would with pumpkins and bushel gourds, but you may need to tack them down somehow because those, when they start to grow, we again don't want them to be getting hit from the wind. Okay, so you can kind of tack them down with bamboo skewers, and as the plant grows, you're going to see that it'll also send out some tendrils, which are good because they grab onto everything on the ground, and so that'll kind of also help those vines to stay on the ground. Okay, outside of that, again, you just want to try and get that plant to fill your garden area as much as it can before the flowers start to pop out. Okay. Okay, so then with the tomatoes, excuse me, with the tomatoes, you're going to need to manage those so that they don't turn into a huge bush. Okay, so not keeping them maintained, all that's going to do is draw that energy away from the growth of your tomatoes, and under certain conditions could even promote disease issues. So as the tomato plants grow, if you remove suckers, as you can see this is going to help control your plant from them getting too bushy. And so you can see where the suckers are located on the picture that I have here on the screen. And they grow from the axil, which is kind of the V area where the leaf branches, out from the stem. And they're, sometimes, I'll let those suckers grow out a few inches, and then I'll pinch those off, and then I'll stick those in water, and those will start some nice plants for you too. Okay, so I'll use those cuttings right from those suckers. Okay. Typically for sunflowers, you don't really need to do a whole lot other than if you live in a windy area, you can give your plant some support. I get a lot of wind out where I'm at, and so basically what I'll do is I'll start with like a 6-foot tomato stake, and then I'll move to using PVC pipe, or I'll tie them up against my house if I need to. So just something to kind of think in mind is that as your sunflower head also grows, the head will get heavy, which can cause the stem to bend over. And if it gets too heavy, it could even pinch off completely at the stem. And so you don't want that to happen, because otherwise that'll totally end your season for growing that sunflower head. So, before that happens, you want to kind of plan ahead and have some way to support it. Okay. So you can see I did place a picture here of what one contestant did with their plant a couple years ago. And you can see how heavy that sunflower head can get, okay? I think that was Sam's sunflower, if I remember right. Okay, so then for your lawn gourds, this plant crawls vertically. So if you're planning on growing lawn gourds and you've never done it before, you're gonna need to make sure you have a nice tall trellis, anywhere between 12 and 15 foot tall, okay? And you could also, I guess, if you didn't want to build a trellis, I guess you could do what some of our contestants have done in the past, and they'll let their lawn gourds grow up a really tall, sturdy mango tree. And so, or something similar. So, you know, that's certainly something you can think about, but whatever you're gonna let your plant crawl on, just remember that it should be able to support the weight of your plant, because those lawn gourds do get heavy. As the lawn gourd grows, it will also need to support the weight of the gourd, okay? And so, you know, the idea is to have that gourd grow straight down too as possible. And if it hits the ground or it touches anything else, like another plant or whatever, you'll see that it'll start to curl on you. So again, you want to try and get that lawn gourd to grow just nice and straight as possible, okay? And if it hits the ground, which you don't want it to hit the ground, but if it hits the ground, it could possibly rot on you, the bottom end of it. And so if that happens, as we've had in the past with new people that have grown it, you know, sometimes you underestimate the length of your gourd. You can improvise, as you can see in the photo, you know, and that kind of definitely has helped to keep the lawn gourd growing. And so it happens with this young man's lawn gourd. He ended up with a state record a couple years ago. And so he really lucked out with his. So I tried growing mine just that way alone last year, and I did okay. Probably could have done better though if I let it hang straight down. They say gravity will actually make your lawn gourds grow heavier. And so, but I did try growing it just how he did it, not because it hit the ground, but more so because I just wanted to see what it would do. And it got to about, I think, 5.5 feet, I think, something like that. So, all right. So something else that you guys need to be concerned about and pay attention to, and with those of you on Oahu, you might need to touch base with Christine and her team to kind of help you on some, you know, things that happen over there. But something else you need to pay attention to over here, from the time that you transplant to the time that you pollinate and beyond, is watching for any kind of pest issues or diseases that might happen. Okay, so depending on where you live, you know, you might have certain pests or diseases to deal with. So if you're checking your plants daily, then if the pests or disease become an issue, hopefully you can catch it early enough that you can treat your plant before it gets seriously damaged. Okay, or better yet, if you can stay one step ahead, if you already know that you have certain pest issues or certain disease issues, now is the time to start thinking about what can I do if this happens, or what can I do to prevent it from happening in the first place. Okay, so the two main pest issues that we hear a lot about every year here on the Big Island is pickleworm and leaf miners. I have a photo of the pickleworm moth in the upper left corner of the slide, and they're known to come out late in the day and evening, and they lay their eggs on your plants, and before long you'll notice the larva somewhere on your plant, or even on your fruit. You can see that the larva looks what the larva looks like in the lower left corner, and untreated or undealt with, it's possible your plant's going to die. Okay. In the upper right corner, we have some leaf miners. I myself hardly ever see the leaf miner itself, but the way I know that they're there is by the trails that the larvae make, kind of like what you see there on the leaves in the lower right photo. And so I've always been told that leaf miners, they don't harm your plant, It just makes your plant look ugly. But that being said, if you have a real severe case of leaf miners, it could lower your productivity of your fruit, and or it could make your plants more susceptible to other problems later on. Okay. For these situations, again, you know, if you know that you have either of these pests, you know, plan ahead for it now and don't wait. You'll see too that I've listed some natural remedies that you can use or maybe even think about, okay? And okay, and although we don't get many contestants alerting us to these pests, know that these could also possibly be an issue too, okay? And those are whitefly, which you see on the left, okay? And then next to that is the aphids, and then thrips are next. And then of course the snails and slugs are on the far right pictures. Okay, so while your plants are growing, you also want to watch out for any kind of deficiencies and diseases. Every year, we're going to see plants from contestants that are lacking in nitrogen. Good indication of nitrogen deficiency usually is seen by the yellowing of the leaves, as you can see in the top and bottom left pictures. You can see that the two pictures for each of the plants with yellowing leaves on the left are, deficient, and on the right, the greener ones are the ones that you want. Okay, it's best to have a fertilizing plan for your plants. I would fertilize at least 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. But don't wait until your plant starts to turn yellow to start thinking about fertilizing. Some suggestions that we talked about last year were fertilizing like with fish emulsion and Bioflora or Nutri-Rich. These are organic pelleted fertilizers. And so that's something that you might consider using. Be sure that with any fertilizer that you're following the label requirements, and know that using more than the recommended amount can actually end up burning your plants or worse, possibly killing them. Okay. Blight can also be a problem, primarily seen, with your tomatoes. You can kind of see what it looks like on the top middle picture. Initially, you get these small dark spots forming on the older foliage near the ground. Okay? And the tissue around the spots often kind of turn yellow and it dies. The damp, warm, rainy summers is usually, that we kind of get around here, could cause that situation to actually get worse quicker. And so they always say that the best thing you could do is to keep your tomato plants covered somehow. But I know that in the past it's been recommended to, like applying like an organic soap concentrate. There's one called Organic Side, and that's going to help. And it's also going to be good for treating any kind of whitefly, aphids, or thrips that you might also have if you have those pests. Okay. Over here on the Big Island, I was told that you can find some of those products at Garden Exchange and Farm Supply Co-op in Hilo, and probably like at the Farm and Garden in Kona. Okay. And so again, on Oahu, again, you might consult with Christine and her team for suggestions on these issues if you have them in your area. Okay, so other things that I've read that could help in getting blight, kind of taken care of would be keeping your plants fertilized properly to maintain their vigorous growth, keeping leaves dry. We talked about that. So if there's a way that you can put a cover to, keep your plants from being exposed to rain, if you have a lot of rain like we do here, just build some sort of cover over it, and then hand water your plants, okay? Or use drip irrigation to kind of water your plants to avoid, splashing water all over the leaves. Okay, and then keeping your tomato plants trimmed so that the plants get that proper airflow through the leaves is also going to be helpful. As for other plant deficiencies and diseases, especially what we see are on the right two photos there. One of them is blossom end rot, which is the top right photo, and powdery mildew, which is the lower right. And you can see both of these from time to time with your plants, excuse me, that we'll get sometimes during the summer. Someone else can chime in if it's needed, but my understanding again is that blossom end rot, it's the main cause, or what the main cause of this is a calcium deficiency in the plant, which can be caused by low calcium levels in the soil, and then or that the soil is either over or underwatered. Okay, but from what I've read too, it could also be caused by a pH imbalance. So using too much nitrogen fertilizer, high salt levels in the soil, and it can be seen sometimes more often in plants that are grown in containers because of the fluctuation of moisture in those containers. Okay, it's suggested that you water your plants consistently and evenly. You don't want to overwater. If they've missed a day, you want to water the same that you do otherwise. If you happen to miss, watering, ensure that the garden bed and containers that you're using have good drainage. You want to water deeply and less frequently rather than, doing them too often or too shallow. And then you can always stick your finger in the dirt near the plant. And if it needs to be, if the moisture, you can feel for the moisture about 2 or 3 inches down. They say getting a soil test done early is also helpful. So then you know early on if your soil is deficient of calcium. And if needed, you could use a supplement, such as bone meal, gypsum, or other similar products to kind of help boost that calcium up a little bit. Okay. And then, of course, lastly, we've got the powdery mildew that you can see, here in the picture. And again, we mostly see this during our wet summers. So keeping the leaves dry, again, is the key. Otherwise, preventing with a fungicide like Daconil usually will help, and applying that about every 7 to 10 days. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at pollination. So, if your plants are growing well, roughly 6 to 8 weeks after you get it in the ground, you're going to start seeing flowers developing. Again, you want your plant to get as much foliage as possible before you consider any kind of pollination. Sometimes, we'll hear that contestants will get flowers, on their plants a week after they get their plants home. When that happens, it's probably more from plant stress. So again, if that happens, again, we need to maybe take a look at that problem a little bit, because again, if you're getting flowers too early and your plant has not grown much, it's not the time to be trying to pollinate. Okay, so if that happens, certainly contact either myself, or if you're on Oahu, get a hold of Christine, and let's see if we can maybe help your plants a little bit. Okay. With the tomato plants, you're going to want to watch for what we call mega blooms, and mega blooms are clusters of flowers that you'll find on your tomato plants, and you're going to find these clusters all on one stem. So similar to what you see circled in the photo. Okay, and so they're gonna, when these flowers, when your tomato starts to develop, you're going to notice that this is going to develop a strange looking tomato, and it sometimes looks like there's 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 tomatoes kind of conjoined. And so that's basically what you want for these quote giant tomatoes. Okay. I think that the earliest that I saw flowers when my plant with my plants was when they were about maybe 18 inches tall. We used to say that, up until then you removed all the single blooms and, you only wanted to look for the mega blooms. On the index. Yeah, so if you want, you can walk all the way around, Dave. Walk all the way around and use the ones that are right across on the other side. Yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, these mega blooms, they're going to produce like conjoined tomatoes. And so I think, again, the earliest that I saw mine was when the plant was about 18 inches tall. And as I was mentioning here a second ago, a while back, we were always told to pull off all of the single blooms off of your tomato plants and only keep or try to strive for those mega blooms. But now I kind of discourage that a little bit because, again, sometimes you don't get a mega bloom, which happens sometimes. And so if at that point, you might end up just trying to get a giant tomato from your single flowers. Okay, so don't get too quick at pulling off those other blooms. They typically will say that when you want to start doing that is after your tomato has set, and then at that point you probably don't want to be promoting any more flowering. But until your tomato is growing really well, I would say just keep the flowers there, but kind of keep a watch out for your mega bloom flowers, and hopefully you guys will all get them. And tomato flowers are self-pollinating. At best, you can maybe blow on them lightly, or you can tap on the flower a little bit, or lightly shake the plant to kind of help them a little bit. Okay. Once you get a tomato to set on your plant, then you want to make sure that you tie something to kind of support it. So if you'll want to use like something that's lightweight in material. So if it gets wet, you can dry it, or it'll dry quickly. I use row crop cover fabric. Some people will use pantyhose. I've even seen people use like sacks, those sacks that you get from like the cutie oranges, those little mandarin oranges. They come in those little bags that have like, the little netting looking sacks. Those also work really well, but you'll want to support them. You can kind of see on the pictures there at the bottom. You want to be able to support your tomatoes somehow, okay? And because they will get heavy, and you don't want them to bend at where they're connected, okay? On the far left, you'll see too the pumpkin flowers, what they're going to look like, and you're going to have male and female flowers. Typically, you're going to have the male flowers come out first, and then about a week later or so, you'll start seeing female flowers. Usually takes about 7 to 10 days for them to open up. And the male flowers will just look like a flower on the stem, where the female flowers are going to have a little pumpkin underneath the flower. Okay. The best pumpkins are going to pollinate, or you're going to want to pollinate when your main vine is about 10 to 15 feet out. Okay. So I have had some people that have told me, oh, I'm getting flowers already, and my main vine is only 3 foot long. More than likely, that's a stress issue. Again, you want to try and grow your main vine to about 10, 15 foot before you consider pollinating. Okay. You can certainly let Mother Nature pollinate for you. But when you hand pollinate, the genetics behind your pumpkins. And then it's also best to pollinate in the mornings, right after the flowers open. You can see in the lower left picture how they pollinated, hand pollinated. And then we typically like to close up the petals for 24 hours after we hand pollinate, and that just ensures that nothing else pollinates it. Okay, and you know, and if you have a, you know, if you have a plan to kind of control the genetics, if the pumpkin sets, you'll start to, well, I messed up on that one. So, okay, so again, we're gonna close up our petals for 24 hours to ensure again that nothing else pollinates it. Then I basically just pull the petals off, just the petals, and that'll keep them from rotting too. Okay, and then if the you know, pumpkin, you know, that you've set is starting to increase in size, you're going to notice that within like 3 to 4 days. Okay, and at that time, it's really important that you get your pumpkin up off the ground and onto a piece of plywood and some sand. Okay, and this is going to help keep the bottom of your plant from rotting. And as we get closer, you know, to those times, we'll be sure to, you know, kind of go over more of those details with you. But again, something to kind of think about right now so that you can, again, plan ahead, have some sand ready, have some plywood ready if you're growing, you know, your pumpkins. Okay. You'll see on this next slide here, we've got some male and female flowers for bushel gourds on the top left and long gourds on the bottom right. Again, the female flowers will have fruit underneath the flower. And if you plan to hand pollinate that female flower, you just handle it kind of similar to what we did with the pumpkin flowers. Okay. The only difference with these is that the flowers will open up at night. And so, you know, that's the time when you're going to pollinate those. Okay. And for us, you know, it's not like in the middle of the night. I know I've talked to some mainland growers and it seems like they're pollinating in the middle of the night or like after it gets dark and they're there with a flashlight and stuff. I know my flowers have always opened up like around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock before it actually gets too dark. And so, so yeah, but just know that if they're white flowers, you're going to be pollinating them in the evening versus the yellow flowers, which you want to try and pollinate those in the morning. Okay. And again, you're going to want to get those fruit as far as the bushel gourds anyways, onto some plywood and some sand. If it turns out that you notice it growing. Okay. And the other thing I like to try to do is I like to try to cover it like with a laundry basket, card table, you know, with some shade cloth, just any old homemade structure that you can help to keep the fruit protected, you know, from the excess heat. Okay. Okay, same thing with watermelons. Okay. My slide will change. There we go. Okay, so with the watermelons, again, your top pictures, you can see your male and female flowers and how to hand pollinate them. Okay, I haven't yet figured out the timing of when these flowers open up. The male flowers always open up at sunrise, but the female flowers, for some reason or another, can open anytime from early morning to mid to late morning hours. So, so you just kind of sometimes have to kind of watch them for when they open. I know that I've tried to let the bees do it. And there was one year I just decided I was going to let the bees do it, and I wasted a whole month of growing time. So, so now I just hand pollinate them just so that I know that it's been done, and then I don't have to worry about it. And then, as far as the pumpkins, or excuse me, the watermelons are concerned, instead of placing them on sand and plywood like I would a pumpkin or a gourd, what I usually do is I will use some sort of plastic shelving, similar to what you see there in the picture. And I use that to keep it up off the ground, and then I'll throw a tarp over the top for some shade. Okay. There's other things that you can use that might be similar to using a shelf, but for me, I just have always used the shelf to get that watermelon up off the ground. Okay. Okay, so other important things that you need to know and remember. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the best way to keep up with what's going on with our contest is to join our Facebook group page. Okay, you're welcome. Those of you on Oahu, you're welcome to join the Hawaii County 4-H Giant Fruit and Vegetable Contest Facebook page. I know Christine also has the same for Oahu. You want to also, we'd like to encourage you to also post pictures of your plants so we can see your progress. The growers, who donate these seeds to us, they really do love to see what happens to those seeds that they send to us every year. And so, send me some photos or send Christine some photos and let's get them posted and share them. Because again, if they see these fruits and vegetables growing, they're more apt to continue donating seeds to us every year. So we want to kind of keep that going. Another thing I didn't talk about, but I think it's important, even though these seeds and plants, that we get as part of the contest, again, I mentioned earlier that genetically they do have the potential to grow monster-sized fruits. I want you guys to set realistic goals for your project, okay? A good goal for anyone that's doing this contest for the first time, make a goal to just keep your plant alive, keep it healthy, and then just try to get a fruit or a vegetable, to your contest or to our contest over here, regardless of what the size is. Don't ever be ashamed if your entry seems smaller than everybody else's, because sometimes you can, it can surprise you. There's been times when nobody was successful and then somebody brought something in really tiny and they won, okay? Take, for example, that year we tried to have a sanctioned contest. If you remember the picture of the 3 kids, they didn't have anything huge. Their 3 pumpkins were, I think, less than 15 pounds. And they won. And so again, I mean, you just never know what can happen. So again, never be ashamed of how your fruit turns out. Everybody at the start needs to start with something. So you have what we call a personal best. And once you have your official personal best, then your goal from that point should be to try and grow it again next year and have it be bigger, okay? Or if you have time, like say with a tomato or something, say you get a half a pound tomato, then see if you can get another flower to develop on your plant, or if you have those extra cuttings that you saved and planted, see if you can get another tomato from one of those plants and see if you can get something bigger, okay? And so, but again, never be ashamed of your plants if they don't turn out like you think, or they're not monster size in your thoughts. Because again, everybody starts somewhere and then they build from that. When it comes to record keeping, something that you want to do is keep a journal or document in a planner what it is that you do with your plants, okay? Document the ID of your plant so you know which plant you're growing. This is important. You got to know your plants when it comes to the contest time. And so when you get a state record, or maybe hopefully someday we all get a world record, they're going to ask you, well, what seed did that come from? What did you pollinate the female to the male? What did you pollinate with? If you don't know your plant, those seeds are going to be pretty much useless, kind of thing. So it's important to have those records. And every year we go through this. I'll document myself on my end what plants you guys take. But once you get them home, people rely off of those little popsicle sticks for remembering what their plant was, and the ink on that doesn't last very long. And so then when it comes time to our show, they can't remember what plant is which. So when you get them home, you want to make sure that you document it, which plant is on the right, which plant is on the left, or make some new signs that are gonna the ink is gonna last longer than on the little popsicle sticks that we might send the plants home with, okay? And if you treated your plants for any pests or diseases, document what the problem was and what you treated it with. If you, you know, pollinated with 2 different plants, again, you're gonna wanna document that. You're gonna find again that these records are gonna come in handy if you start to struggle and somebody's trying to help you. Then they're gonna wanna know what you've done. And then, you know, the other thing too is what we've started to do too is with the kids here on the Big Island. We'll also have a contest category for best record keeping and photo diary. We kind of fell short of doing that a little bit with our COVID situation, but we're going to try and bring that back again. I do have a template for kids to keep track of the weather and what it is that they're doing. I have a little template that you can use, or you're welcome to make up your own set of records. But records, again, are real important. I talked about the plant ID, making sure that, again, that you know what plant you have. And I should probably have a contest to see if people know what plants they have at the end of the year, because again, we're still working on families remembering to do that. Okay, earlier I mentioned about the 150 square foot Atlantic Giant contest. If you don't have a 25 by 30 foot area to grow, you know, an Atlantic Giant, but still want to grow one, if you have, say, a 10 by 15 foot area, then an Atlantic Giant pumpkin plant would probably be good for you to enter this contest if that sounds interesting to you. You're not going to be planting anything else in there other than one plant, okay? If you know, we give out 2 plants, and so if your second plant's going to be grown somewhere else, great, but you're only going to have 1 plant in that 10 by 15 foot area. And actually the dimensions of that can be anything you want. It doesn't have to be a square or a rectangle, as long as you have 150 square foot of area that you're growing your plant in, and you actually have to document that. The rules just came out to me this morning. If you are interested in that, send me an email and I will certainly get that information to you. There are deadlines and stuff, and I believe it might be the end of this month. So I may be asking for everybody to let me know so that we can get that all taken care of if you're interested in that. I've also been told that there's going to be a 5-gallon bucket challenge for tomatoes. And that I'm still waiting on the information for that contest. So when that comes out, I will again get that passed along, and I'll pass that along to Christine. And actually I have everybody's email addresses, so I can easily send it out to everybody that is competing. And then next, I want to just mention too about our give back to our project. So, you know, again, there's a lot of cost that goes into our program every year. And as you know, or if you're involved in 4-H, you know that 4-H is about giving back. And so we're going to start asking, you know, again, for some of you to give back to our program in the form of seeds, mainly if your, you know, entry was something of significant size. And so I hope that, you know, that you'd be willing to help us out, you know, if we ask you. And again, that just helps us to keep our programs going. You know, I know that there's always a big interest in doing sunflowers. Sunflower seeds are extremely hard to come by. And at least over here on the Big Island, I know that we have issues where a lot of our seeds are duds. Why that is, we still haven't really figured it out, if it's mainly a deficiency of some sort, or if it's bees not pollinating well or something. But we do have a shortage of sunflower seeds, and getting them from the mainland growers, you know, I get a little bit every year. That helps. But, you know, if we can get sizable sunflowers or any you know, fruit or vegetable that's of significant size, we may be asking for your help with some seeds so we can keep our program going. Okay. Also, please, please, please enter our contest if you harvest any fruit or vegetable from your plants. Our hope is that, again, everybody will be successful and will be able to harvest something. You know, we need to be able to show impacts of what we're doing with this project to keep it going year after year. Again, as I mentioned earlier, don't ever be ashamed to think that your entry is small. Every entry counts, okay? And so, and at least over here, I'm not sure how Oahu is doing it or has done it, but over here, all of our entrants or our contestants, they're rewarded somehow. And so we want to kind of keep that going. And so again, you know, you've got to get a personal best. And so if you get something, let us know so we can weigh it in for you and count that as an entry for the year. Okay. Hopefully this year, the timing will be right with everybody's fruits and vegetables, and we'll get a lot at our September contest. Okay. And okay, and then lastly, we want you again to think about staying one step ahead of everything, whether that be the issues, the pests, the diseases. You know, we talked a little bit about them today. We want you to be proactive, figure out how you can, you know, prevent the worst from happening before it happens, or at least have a plan in place. So if something does happen, you can jump on it quickly before it destroys your plants. And by all means, you got to remember, this has to be fun. Okay. So, you know, I don't think that we could do this project, you know, if it wasn't fun. And of course, we get lots of people every year. So I think it must be fun enough that, you know, that people are coming back. So make it fun. Okay. So with that, you know, that's all that I have for you guys today. I, you know, hope it's not too overwhelming for some of you, especially your first time kids or contestants, but know that, you know, we'll try our best to help you again. If you need help, please don't hesitate to ask if you need the help. Before you leave, I just have a couple of announcements. First, when we get finished here, we're gonna do 3 more door prizes. So if you can hang on for just a little bit, we still have 10 more minutes, but we'll be doing that here shortly. The other thing too is I want to let you guys know to mark your calendars for Saturday, May 7th. We're going to be having our annual seminar on that day. And we have some really great mainland growers that are looking forward to meeting with all of you guys again. And this will be an opportunity for those of you that are new to ask any question that you have ever had about growing giants. Okay, so start thinking about your questions. And I have to tell you, nothing is off limits. Our presenters are open to sharing all of their secrets. But the seminar itself is very informal, meaning that we don't present to you. Basically what we do is we allow our audience to ask questions of our mainland growers. And as long as those questions keep coming in, the seminar keeps going. Okay, so you'll be surprised. You know, we carry this out for 2 hours. That's how many, you know, good questions and discussions that we get about, you know, questions that we have about growing our giant plants. And so you might want to go ahead and jot those down. And I'm going to stop share screening right now. And so jot those questions down that you might have and bring them with you to the seminar. And then outside of that, for those of you on the Big Island, and again, Oahu's more than welcome to join us. I'll send out information too when we start having our monthly talk story sessions. So that's a great way to share the successes that you're having with your plants. And it's also a great time to let us know challenges that you might be having so that we can help you guys with your plants. And then again, I started the tomato and cabbage plants here on the Big Island. So if you signed up for those, start getting ready for those plants. And then again, if it turns out that after us talking about, you know, space for growing plants, if we need to readjust what it was that you signed up for, or you don't remember what you signed up for, get a hold of me, or if you're on Oahu, get a hold of Christine, and let's see what we can do about helping you grow something that will work for you for your situation. Okay, so other than that, let's do a couple more door prizes. Hopefully everybody that was on is still on. And I see that there was some chat going on too. Let's see. If you didn't sign up on the, you know, to let us know you're here, please make sure you document who was all in your party. Okay, so Charles, come on over and help me pick a couple more winners for our door prizes. I think we're going to give away another set of garden gloves. We'll see if this happens to be somebody that can use garden gloves. Bernie Garris, is she on today? Okay, so we're gonna pick another one. Let's see. Is Samantha Garcia, is she on? Oh, that's too bad. All right, let's pick another one until we find our winners. Oh, Jill Phillips. No, oh my word.
Maybe they're here.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Don Friedman. Wow, these are all Wahoo people. Oh no. Okay, put one back. All right, Sharon. Could you?
That's what I do. I have small hands.
Do you? It's good. I don't have this water somewhere. See if I can get you. It'll fit. If not, we'll get you something else. They're gonna fit? Oh, cool. Great. All right. All right. So we've got a planting mat or transplanting mat. Let's see who gets that. Oh, Celeste. Is she still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Wow. Okay. You always win something on these things. All right. I'll drop that off by your house or give it to you when you come over next time. Oops. Here, what am I doing? I'm picking them. Here, let me pick one. All right. And the last thing is a giant pumpkin book. Ah, Lisa. I thought I saw Lisa. Oh, Lisa is on there. Are you still there or are you just on?
I'm here,
All
but I
right.
think I won a giant pumpkin book the other year.
Did you? I do have two. So if it turns out that you've got the one that we have here, which is the giant pumpkin number 2, I do have a giant pumpkin number 3. So check and
Oh, okay,
yeah, check and let me know. Sound good?
I will. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right. So, okay, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. And is there any questions or anything of anybody before we sign off for today? Oh, go ahead, Sharon.
I was wondering, I'd like to hear from anybody who's been growing the cabbages successfully. Because I have my cabbages that I started from seeds last year. They're still growing. They're still small. They'll never be a giant, I think. But just any tips on how to get those guys healthy and happy?
Okay. We just happen to have a Cross family who's been good about that. And we have the Yip family on.
We had, sorry, it's on there.
No, go ahead.
So we got 2 plants last time. And we tried one in like partial sun and one in more shade. The one in more shade died,
Yeah.
and the one in partial sun did quite well. It actually got really dense. It wasn't a big cabbage, it got about this big the head, but it was really dense. It was crazy dense. And you haven't done the official weights yet, so.
But they were successful in getting 2 to the scale, or
Yeah,
3.
well, we had 3 total.
Yeah.
During last year, the October time, we had one just a couple
Recently.
weeks ago.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
yes, because mine are doing better now.
Okay.
They were actually shaded out by like herbs, which is sad, because herbs should be
Yeah,
smaller.
it was, so the one that did quite well, it was it had great morning sun.
Morning sun, okay.
Morning sun,
Okay.
it was great, and then it had afternoon shade, and it did really well. And the main thing on that one was, every time I was actually treating for pickleworm on my loofah, I was treating that to keep any bugs off of it. The same thing I was doing for my pickleworm on the loofah, I was doing that.
I see. Yeah, because even this morning I noticed I had those, I call them cabbage worm, the ones that are green, that match the color of the cabbage, it had those on it today.
So it was like a twice a week
Yeah.
treatment on that.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay.
Same thing with the sluggo, because the slugs
Yeah,
are very
slugs.
much.
Yeah, slugs can be a problem from what I've understood. But I know, and I don't know if Sam's able to respond at all. But I know like Sam's cabbage plant almost got eaten completely,
Yeah.
and then he came back. He was actually able to get a nice cabbage as well. And so Sam, are you able to tell us what you did? And I know Lisa also had cabbage also that she grew and was successful at getting them too. Do you guys want to add anything? Do you guys want to add anything?
With one of my cabbage plant, the slugs attacked that plant, which left the other plant to grow nicely.
Sacrifice.
So for us, we did a spray for the caterpillar. One of the issue was the caterpillar issue. So they were basically eating up the cabbage. And we spray, do you remember the name of it?
BT.
Oh, BT, yeah. So we spray BT and that resolved the issue. So that was what taken care of. But after a little bit later, somehow I think the slug was coming in and you couldn't really pick them out because they really actually went in the nooks and cranny. So that is an issue. So you probably need to control the environment around it so the slug doesn't get into the cabbage. So other than that, I think we are fine. I mean, and the other thing is they seem to like the cool sunlight and not the shade. We have one that's in the shade, a third one that was from like 2 years ago. They're still growing, really tiny. But the one that we had under the sun in the cool sunlight, it's the one that's growing. And we actually had 2 that was growing really well.
Great. Well, thanks for your suggestions. Hopefully that'll help
Yeah, no, that's
Sharon
great.
out a little bit. And we do have some more cabbage plants again that we've started. So again, if you want to try with a different cabbage plant, let me know and we can get that.
Yeah,
for you.
they're growing better now that they have
Yeah.
more sun, actually. I cut back on the other bush.
Okay, yeah. So, all right. Well, anyone from Oahu?
Actually, one
that's,
last thing.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
want to add is if you want to harvest the seed of those cabbage, you need to cut out the round cabbage on top and then let the shoots grow out from where the cabbage bottom is. And the flower would eventually come out, and then I think that's where the flowers and the seeds are. And we did that, and we see a lot of sprouts coming out. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Cool.
So if you need the seeds later down the road, and we have it, I mean, we'll be happy to donate some seeds.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, what might be a good idea too is if you get seeds, go ahead and plant a few and see what you end up with. And if they do well, yeah, that would be great to get some seeds from you. So, okay, cool. Well, I see a lot of people just kind of signing off and stuff. And so, so I'm going to go ahead and call this good. So, okay, so I've seen a lot of thank you and everything. So, all right, so I'm gonna let everybody go. Thank you again for coming and see you hopefully on May 5th. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, okay.
I was surprised on Nancy.
Yeah, interesting.
I mean, I brought it here to get a fish for 8 I was actually surprised
Uh-huh.
because it wasn't